Jake had always been good at noticing things others missed. Maybe it came from studying languages for so long, or maybe he was just naturally curious. Either way, he knew something was different about the new girl in his advanced linguistics class from the moment she walked in. She entered the classroom exactly 3 minutes before the professor, carrying what looked like the most advanced tablet he'd ever seen. Her posture was perfect, like she'd been trained in some kind of royal etiquette, and she wore simple clothes that somehow looked expensive. But what really caught his attention was how she observed everything around her with the intensity of a scientist studying a new species. Professor Williams started the day's lesson on emotional expressions in language, as he explained how humans use pet names and casual terms of endearment. Jake noticed the new student frantically taking notes, not just regular notes either. She was writing down everything, even obvious things like how students laughed when the professor made jokes. Can anyone give me an example of how context changes the meaning of affectionate terms? Professor Williams asked. Jake raised his hand. Well, when I call my little sister Pest, she knows I'm being playful. But if a stranger called her that, it would be rude. The new girl's pen moved quickly across her tablet. She raised her hand tentatively. Yes, Miss Luna, the professor said, reading from his roster. What is the evolutionary purpose of these pet names? Luna asked, her voice carrying a slight accent Jake couldn't place. Why do humans feel compelled to use diminutive terms for those they care about? The class fell silent. It wasn't a normal question for a linguistics student. Professor Williams adjusted his glasses, clearly intrigued. That's quite a sophisticated question. Most linguists believe pet names create emotional bonds and signal intimacy within social groups. Luna nodded seriously and made another note. Jake found himself staring. Who talked like that? And why did she seem so fascinated by basic human behavior? After class, Jake gathered his courage. He'd been meaning to introduce himself anyway, and their professor had mentioned they'd be working in pairs for the next project. Hey there, sweetie, Jake said casually as Luna packed her unusual tablet. It was just his way of being friendly. He called everyone sweetie or buddy or pal. Luna froze completely. Her cheeks turned bright red, and she looked up at him with wide eyes that seemed to sparkle with surprise. And something else he couldn't identify. Good afternoon, darling, she replied formally, giving him a small smile that seemed both nervous and pleased. Jake blinked. Nobody had ever called him darling before, especially not in response to his casual greeting. The way she said it sounded almost practiced, like she'd been rehearsing the word. I'm Jake, he said, extending his hand. Jake Rivera, are you new to the university? I'm Luna, she replied, shaking his hand with surprising firmness. I have recently transferred here from a small, distant community. Cool. Where from? Luna hesitated. Very far north. You would not know it. Jake noticed she didn't say which country, but he didn't want to pry. Maybe she was from some tiny town in Alaska or Canada. Well, since we're both in Williams' class, want to grab coffee and talk about the project. I heard we're supposed to analyze cross-cultural communication patterns. Cross-cultural communication, Luna repeated slowly, as if testing the words. Yes, I would find that very educational. They walked to the campus coffee shop together. Jake kept stealing glances at Luna as they talked. She had an odd way of speaking, very precise and formal. When he made a joke about the weather, she tilted her head like she was translating it in her mind before laughing a beat too late. At the coffee counter, Luna stared at the menu with genuine confusion. There are so many varieties of the same. Basic beverage, she murmured. First time at a coffee shop? Jake asked, amused. Something like that. Luna looked lost among the choices of lattes, cappuccinos, and frappuccinos. How about I order for you, sweetie? Trust me, I know what's good here. Again, that red flush crept up Luna's cheeks. Thank you, darling, she said softly, and Jake swore he saw her touch her face like she was surprised by its warmth. He ordered 2 caramel macchiatos and found them a quiet corner table. As they settled in with their drinks, Jake opened his laptop to discuss the project. So, Professor Williams wants us to examine how different cultures express emotions through language. He began. Luna leaned forward, suddenly very interested. And how do you typically express affection in your culture? Well, lots of ways. We use nicknames, pet names, casual terms like I did earlier. Some people say honey or dear or babe. And when someone uses these terms with you, how does it make you feel? Jake paused. It was another oddly clinical question. Warm, I guess. Like they care about me. Why do you ask? I am trying to understand the emotional responses these words create, Luna said carefully. In my community, we are much more formal with our expressions of care. That's interesting. What do people call each other where you're from? Luna was quiet for a moment. We have terms of respect, formal acknowledgments of relationship status. Nothing quite so casual. As they worked on their project outline, Jake noticed more strange things about Luna. She didn't recognize references to popular movies or TV shows. When he mentioned social media, she looked blank. She had no photos on her phone of friends or family, but the strangest thing was her knowledge when they discussed language evolution. Luna made observations that seemed way beyond what any undergraduate should know. She talked about communication patterns like she'd studied dozens of different cultures firsthand. You know, Jake said as they packed up to leave, you have really unique insights into this stuff. Are you thinking about graduate school? I suppose you could say I am here to expand my understanding of human communication patterns, Luna replied. Human communication patterns. Not just communication patterns, human communication patterns. As if she were studying them from the outside, walking back across campus. Luna suddenly stopped in the middle of the quad and looked up at the early evening sky. A few stars were beginning to appear in the twilight. Beautiful, she whispered, but not in the casual way someone might comment on a nice sunset. She stared at the stars with intense longing, like she was looking at something she missed desperately. You really like astronomy? Jake asked. Luna seemed to catch herself. Yes. The stars are very far away, aren't they? Well, yeah. Light years. The closest star besides the sun is over 4 light years away. That's about 25 trillion miles. Luna looked at him sharply. You know the exact distance to Proxima Centauri? Jake shrugged. I took an astronomy class last semester. Why? Nothing. It just seems very precise for casual knowledge. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. As they reached the library steps where they planned to split up, Luna turned to him. Jake, may I ask you something? Sure, sweetie. The blush again. She was going to have to get used to that if they were going to be friends. When you use that word with me, do you feel the same warmth you described earlier? Jake considered the question. Did he? There was something about Luna that made him want to take care of her. Protect her maybe. She seemed so innocent about things everyone else took for granted. Yeah, he admitted. I guess I do. Luna's smile was radiant. Then I am beginning to understand. Thank you for today, darling. She walked away before he could respond, leaving Jake standing on the library steps wondering why a simple conversation about linguistics felt like the most important discussion he'd ever had. As he watched her disappear into the evening shadows, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Luna was hiding something big. But whatever it was, he found himself hoping she'd trust him enough to share it someday. Little did he know that Luna's secret was bigger than anything he could have imagined, and that their innocent conversation about pet names had just set in motion events that would change both their lives forever. The next few weeks changed everything for Jake. What started as a simple class partnership had become something he looked forward to more than anything else in his day. Luna was like no one he'd ever met, and the more time they spent together, the more fascinated he became. They met every Tuesday and Thursday at the same corner table in the coffee shop. Jake had started ordering Luna's drink before she arrived, always the same caramel macchiato. She would arrive exactly on time, thank him by calling him darling in that formal way of hers, and then dive into their work with intense focus. But their conversations had started drifting beyond just schoolwork. Jake found himself genuinely curious about Luna's unique perspective on everything around them. I don't understand why humans enjoy sarcasm, Luna said one afternoon, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Yesterday, someone said great weather we're having during the rainstorm, and everyone laughed. But weather is not a choice humans make. Why mock it? Jake grinned. It's not really mocking the weather, sweetie. It's more like shared frustration. That becomes funny when we all acknowledge it together. Luna's cheeks pinked as they always did when he called her sweetie. So sarcasm is a form of social bonding through collective disappointment. Wow, I never thought of it that way. But yeah, kind of. She made a note in her tablet. Jake had started noticing that her notes were never in English. The symbols looked almost like mathematical equations mixed with artistic designs. What language is that? He asked one day. Luna's hand froze over her tablet. It's a family dialect, very old. Jake didn't push, but he was getting more curious about Luna's background every day. She never mentioned friends from home, never got texts or calls, and seemed to have no social media presence whatsoever when he'd searched for her online out. Of curiosity, absolutely nothing came up. One Thursday, instead of their usual coffee shop, Jake suggested they walk around campus while they talked. The weather was perfect, and he wanted to see more of how Luna reacted to new environments. Tell me about dating in your culture, Luna said as they strolled past the student center. Jake nearly tripped over his own feet. Dating? That's pretty direct. I am trying to understand romantic customs for research purposes, right? Research. Jake tried not to feel disappointed that her interest was purely academic. Well, usually people start as friends, hang out, get to know each other, then maybe go on actual dates, like dinner or movies, and physical contact. Is that expected? Jake's face heated up. Depends on the people. Some folks hold hands, hug, that kind of thing. While Luna was quiet for a moment, in my community, physical contact is very formal, restricted. I am curious about these more casual expressions of care. Without really thinking about it, Jake reached over and gently took Luna's hand as they walked. Like this, Luna stopped walking entirely. She stared down at their joined hands with wonder, as if she'd never seen anything like it before. Is this normal? She whispered. Pretty normal for friends, yeah. Does it bother you? Luna looked up at him, and Jake saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Vulnerability mixed with amazement. It creates a very warm sensation. She said softly, is that the intended effect? One of them? Sure. They walked hand in hand for another block before Luna gently pulled away. But Jake noticed she kept flexing her fingers like she was trying to hold onto the feeling. The following week, Jake decided to introduce Luna to what he considered essential human experiences. First stop, movies. I have never been to a cinema, Luna admitted as they stood in front of the theater. Never, not even as a kid. Entertainment in my community is different. Jake bought tickets to a romantic comedy, figuring it would be a good introduction to casual American culture. Luna's reactions throughout the movie were priceless. She laughed at parts that weren't funny and looked confused during the actual jokes. When the characters kissed, she leaned forward in her seat like she was studying their technique. The female character's facial expression changed dramatically when the male called her baby. Luna observed as they left the theater. Yeah, bet names can be pretty powerful. Powerful, Luna repeated thoughtfully. Yes, I am beginning to understand their significance. Jake's apartment became their new study spot after Luna mentioned she found the library too public. She seemed more relaxed in private settings, asking questions she never would have asked around other people. Jake, may I practice? She asked one evening as they worked on their project. Practice what? Casual terms of affection. I want to understand how they feel to say, not just to hear. Jake's heart did something weird in his chest. Sure, go ahead. Luna cleared her throat formally. Hello, buddy. Jake couldn't help but laugh. That's not really how you'd use it, but good try. What about, honey? The way she said it, careful and deliberate, made Jake's stomach flutter. Better. And a sweetie? Perfect. Luna beamed with pride. Now you try teaching me responses. Responses? When someone calls you darling. What should you call them back? Jake thought about it. Well, You could say sweetie back, or honey. Or, he paused, looking at Luna's expectant face, or you could say something like hey there, beautiful. Luna's entire face turned red. Beautiful. It's just an example, Jake said quickly, suddenly embarrassed. I mean, you are. But I am what? Jake met her eyes. Beautiful. You're beautiful, Luna. The silence stretched between them, charged with something Jake couldn't quite name. Luna touched her cheek again. That gesture he'd noticed she made whenever she was feeling something strongly. In my culture, she said quietly, we do not speak so directly about physical appearance. Sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I did not say it made me uncomfortable. That night, as Jake walked Luna to the campus shuttle stop, she surprised him. Jake, yeah, thank you for teaching me about human customs. You are very patient with my questions. Human customs, Jake repeated. You keep saying things like that, like you're studying us from the outside. Luna went very still. I simply mean, coming from such a different background, right? Jake didn't buy it, but he didn't want to push. Luna, yes, darling? The words sent warmth spreading through his chest. I really enjoy spending time with you. Luna's smile was soft and genuine. I enjoy spending time with you as well, more than I expected to when I first arrived. As the shuttle pulled up, Luna turned back to him one more time. Jake, when you called me beautiful earlier, I felt something I have never felt before. Is that normal? What did you feel? Like my heart was trying to communicate something my mind could not translate. Jake watched the shuttle disappear into the night, Luna's words echoing in his head. Whatever was going on with her, whatever she was hiding, one thing was becoming crystal clear to him. He was falling for her, and falling hard. Everything started falling apart on a Tuesday evening in November. Jake had been noticing strange things about Luna for weeks now, but he'd been trying to ignore them because he was falling deeper for her every day. But that night, the little inconsistencies finally built up into something he couldn't dismiss anymore. They were at his apartment working on their final project presentation. Luna had been more distracted than usual, checking her tablet frequently and seeming nervous about something. The device kept making soft chimming sounds that didn't sound like any phone Jake had ever heard. You okay, sweetie? Jake asked, watching her jump at another chime. Luna's blush was immediate, but this time it came with a worried expression. Yes, I'm fine, darling. Just some messages from home. Everything all right with your family? They are concerned about my extended stay here. Jake looked up from his laptop. Extended stay? I thought you transferred here for the whole semester. Luna froze, realizing her mistake. I meant, they worry when I'm away for long periods. But Jake had caught something else. Luna, can I ask you something that's been bugging me? Of course. You never talk about your hometown. You never mention friends from back home. You don't know any movies or TV shows. You've never been to a coffee shop before. And sometimes you ask questions about basic human behavior, like you're studying a completely foreign species. Luna went very pale. I told you, my community is very isolated. How isolated? Because yesterday you mentioned that Proxima Centauri is actually part of a triple star system, which is something only astronomy majors would know. And last week you corrected Professor Williams on a point about linguistic evolution that I couldn't find in any of our textbooks. Luna's tablet chimed again, more urgently this time. She glanced at it and her face went white. Jake, I should go. Luna, wait. Jake stood up, gently catching her arm. Whatever's going on, you can trust me. I care about you. Luna looked up at him with tears forming in her eyes. You care about me? Of course I do. More than I probably should, considering how much you're clearly not telling me. More than you should, Luna repeated softly. Jake's heart was racing. This felt like a moment where everything would change, one way or another. Luna, I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Luna stared at him with such surprise and longing that Jake felt his chest tighten. You love me, she whispered. Yeah, I think I do. Which is why I need you to be honest with me. Who are you really? Luna's tablet chimed again, and this time Jake caught a glimpse of the screen. The symbols weren't like anything he'd ever seen. But what made his breath catch was what looked like a star map with distance calculations. That seemed to involve numbers far too large for anywhere on Earth. "Luna, what is that?" She tried to hide the device. But Jake had already seen enough to know it wasn't any technology he recognized. "Jake, please. I can explain. But not here." "Then where?" Luna looked around his apartment desperately, like she was making a huge decision. "There's a place I can show you. But if I do, everything will change. You will never be able to think about the world the same way." Jake's mind was spinning, but his heart was clear. "I don't care. I want to know who you really are." Luna closed her eyes for a long moment, then opened them with a look of determination. "Then come with me." They drove to the outskirts of town in Jake's car, Luna giving directions to a place he'd never been. They ended up in a clearing in the woods, far from any lights or houses. Luna led him to what looked like empty space, but when she pressed something on her tablet, the air shimmered and suddenly there was a small, sleek craft sitting in front of them. Jake's legs nearly gave out. "What the Jake?" Luna said quietly. "My name is Luna, but I am not from a small town in the north. I am from a planet you call Kepler 4b, approximately 1,200 light-years from here." Jake stared at the ship, then at Luna, then back at the ship. His brain refused to process what he was seeing. "You're an alien. I prefer extraterrestrial," Luna said with a small, nervous smile. "I am here as part of a cultural study program. My people have been observing Earth for many years, and I was sent to learn about human social customs and emotional expressions before we attempt formal contact." "This is insane." Jake sat down heavily on a fallen log. "You're actually from another planet, yes? And you've been studying humans, yes? And I've been." Jake looked up at her. "Have your feelings for me been real? Or am I just part of your research?" Luna's face crumpled with emotion. "Oh, Jake, no. That is the problem. My feelings for you are very real, and they were never supposed to happen." She sat down beside him, careful to leave space between them. "In my culture, we do not experience emotions the way humans do. We have connections, but they are logical, purposeful. What I feel for you is completely outside my experience. What do you feel for me?" Luna looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold starlight. "When you call me sweetie, my heart does something. That is no translation in my language. When you smile at me, I want to stay in that moment forever. When you said you love me, I felt like I understood why humans write poetry." Jake felt tears prick his eyes. "Luna, the word I have been calling you, darling. In my language it means something much deeper than a casual endearment. It means one whose happiness is essential to my own survival. I have never used that word with anyone before." They sat in silence for a moment, the impossible ship gleaming softly in the moonlight. "So what happens now?" Jake asked. Luna's tablet chimed again, and she looked at it with dread. "I have been summoned home. My behavior has been deemed concerning to my supervisors. When I was supposed to leave tonight, but you brought me here instead." Luna nodded. "Because I realized that I would rather face the consequences of disobedience than leave without telling you the truth." Jake reached over and took her hand, marveling at how normal it felt despite everything he'd just learned. "I love you too, Luna. I don't care what planet you're from." Luna's smile was radiant and heartbreaking at the same time. "My dearest darling, you have given me the greatest gift in the universe. You have taught me how to love." As they sat there, holding hands under the stars, Jake realized that his life had just become an impossible love story, and he wouldn't trade it for anything. The next few weeks were the strangest and most wonderful of Jake's life. After Luna's revelation in the forest, everything changed. But somehow their relationship became even stronger. They had to be careful about meeting in public now that Jake knew her secret, but Luna found ways to show him glimpses of her world that left him amazed. Luna had managed to buy them some time by telling her supervisors she needed another month to complete her cultural research. She didn't mention that her research had become deeply personal, or that she was now studying the concept of love not as an observer, but as someone experiencing it. For the first time, they met at his apartment most evenings now. Luna would arrive with her advanced tablet, and after they finished their actual homework, she would share incredible things about her home world and technology. "Your people must think we're pretty primitive," Jake said one night as Luna showed him holographic images of her planet through her device. "Not primitive," Luna corrected gently. "Different. Your species is something mine has always struggled with." "What's that?" "Creativity born from emotion. Art, music, poetry, stories told just for the joy of telling them. On my world, everything has a logical purpose. Here, humans create beauty simply because beauty matters to them." Jake looked at the holographic cityscape floating above Luna's tablet. Everything was perfectly designed, elegantly functional, but somehow cold despite its beauty. "Don't you have art?" "We have aesthetic design, but it serves practical purposes. Your species creates things like that song you played for me last week, the one that made you smile just because you remembered your childhood. We have nothing like that." Jake had played an old song his mom used to sing to him, and Luna had watched him with fascination as he got lost in the memory. "Maybe that's why you were sent to study us," Jake suggested. Luna was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps, though I don't think my supervisors expected their researcher to fall in love with her subject." "Their researcher fell for her subject." How Jake grinned. Luna blushed. "Still not used to casual teasing. I fell for you, darling, completely and entirely." These quiet moments in his apartment became precious to them both. Luna would practice human customs she'd been studying, and Jake would help her understand the emotional context behind them. She was fascinated by the idea of physical comfort, having come from a culture where touch was rare and formal. "On my world, we maintain physical distance as a sign of respect," Luna explained as they sat together on his couch, her head resting on his shoulder. "This would be considered very inappropriate. How does it feel?" Jake asked, gently stroking her hair. "Like safety," Luna said softly, "like belonging somewhere." But their peaceful bubble couldn't last forever. Luna's tablet had been chimming more frequently with messages from home, and each time it did, she became more tense. One evening, as they were walking through the campus botanical garden after dark, Luna suddenly stopped and looked up at the stars. "Jake, I need to tell you something." The serious tone in her voice made his stomach drop. "What is it, sweetie?" Luna's automatic blush was sad this time instead of happy. "My supervisor, Commander Vex, has been reviewing my reports. He's noticed that my observations have become too detailed, too personal." "What does that mean?" "He thinks I've become emotionally compromised. He's concerned that my feelings for human culture and she looked at him, for you, are affecting my objectivity." Jake felt cold despite the warm evening. "What's he going to do about it?" "He's sending someone to check on me. Another researcher who will evaluate whether I'm still capable of completing my mission." "When?" "Soon. Maybe tomorrow." They walked in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Jake spoke up. "Luna, what happens if this other researcher decides you're too emotionally involved?" "They will remove me from the assignment and send me home immediately. And then," Luna stopped walking and turned to face him, "then I will never see you again. Interplanetary travel is strictly regulated. Personal relationships with other species are—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Not encouraged." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the chest. "So we're talking about forever. Not just long distance, but literally never again." "Yes." They sat down on a bench overlooking the small pond in the center of the garden. Luna pulled out her tablet and showed Jake something he'd never seen before. "This is a message I received today." The symbols meant nothing to Jake, but Luna's translation made his blood run cold. It says, "Researcher Luna, you are hereby notified that Agent Kaz will arrive tomorrow to assess your mental state and mission progress. Prepare for immediate extraction if deemed necessary. Your recent report suggests dangerous attachment to local subjects. Remember your duty to your people above all else. Local subjects." Jake repeated, "Is that what I am to them?" Luna reached for his hand. "To them, yes. To me, you are the most important person in any world." Jake squeezed her fingers. "There has to be something we can do. I don't know what." My people don't understand love the way humans do. To them, what I feel for you is a malfunction, not a gift. Then make them understand. How? Jake stood up, pacing in front of the bench. Show them what you've learned. Prove that your feelings aren't making you a worse researcher. They're making you a better one. I don't understand, Luna. You've learned more about human emotion and culture than anyone could learn from just observing. You've experienced it firsthand. That makes you the perfect person to help your people understand us when they're ready for contact. Luna looked thoughtful. You think my emotional involvement could be an advantage rather than a problem? I think you falling in love with a human proves that our species could have a real connection someday. Isn't that exactly what your people need to know? Luna's tablet chimed with another message. This one was short. Agent Cass has landed. He will meet with me tomorrow at sunset. Jake sat back down beside her, pulling her close. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. What? These past few months with you have been the best of my life. You've changed the way I see everything. If loving you means I get to be part of the greatest love story in the galaxy, then I'm honored. Luna looked up at him with tears in her eyes. In my language, there's a phrase that translates to love that bridges stars. I never understood what it meant until I met you. What's the phrase? Luna said something in her musical language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder. Teach me to say it. Luna smiled through her tears and helped Jake practice the pronunciation. It took him several tries, but finally he got it right. Perfect, Luna whispered. You just told me you love me in the language of my people. As they walked back to his car, Jake made a decision. Tomorrow, when this agent came to evaluate Luna, Jake would be there too. He didn't know what he could do to help, but he wasn't going to let the love of his life face this alone. After all, if their love really could bridge stars, maybe it could bridge the gap between two very different worlds. The day Agent arrived was the longest day of Jake's life. Luna had been nervous all morning, checking her tablet constantly and barely eating anything when they met for lunch. They'd agreed to meet at the forest clearing where Luna had first shown him her ship, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. What if he orders me to leave immediately? Luna asked as they walked through the woods. What if I don't get a chance to explain? Then we'll figure something else out, Jake said, squeezing her hand. I'm not giving up on us that easily, sweetie. Luna's blush was automatic, but her smile was shaky. I love when you call me that, darling. I hope I get to hear it for many more years. When they reached the clearing, Luna's ship was already visible, but there was another craft beside it. This one was larger and more intimidating, with sharp angles that made it look military. Jake felt his heart sink. He's here, Luna whispered. A figure emerged from the larger ship, and Jake got his first look at one of Luna's people. Agent Cass looked human enough at first glance, but there was something different about his movements. Too precise and controlled. His eyes scanned the clearing and fixed on Jake with obvious disapproval. Researcher Luna, Agent Cass said in perfect English, though his voice carried the same musical quality as Luna's. You were instructed to meet alone. Agent Cass, this is Jake Rivera. He is the subject I mentioned in my reports. The human you have become emotionally attached to. It wasn't a question. Agent Cass studied Jake like he was looking at a lab specimen. This is exactly the kind of inappropriate involvement we were concerned about. Jake stepped forward, fighting the urge to be intimidated. With respect, Agent Cass, I think you're missing something important here. Humans do not address me directly. Well, this human does. Jake moved closer to Luna, taking her hand. And this human loves Luna more than anything in any world. Agent Cass's expression grew colder. Researcher Luna, your emotional compromise is worse than reported. You will return with me immediately for psychological evaluation and reassignment. Wait, Luna said, stepping between them. Agent Cass, I request permission to present my findings before you make a final decision. Your findings are irrelevant. Your objectivity has been compromised. That's where you're wrong. Jake interrupted. Luna's feelings haven't compromised her research. They've made it better than anything you could have imagined. Agent Cass turned his cold stare on Jake. Explain. Jake took a deep breath. This was their only chance. You sent Luna here to study human emotions and social connections, right? To understand how we work before making contact. But studying emotions from the outside is like trying to understand music. By looking at sound waves on a screen, you might get the technical details, but you miss the whole point. Continue. Luna didn't just observe human love, she experienced it. She knows exactly how it feels when someone calls you a pet name. Why humans reach for each other when they're scared. What it means when someone chooses to trust you with their secrets. She's lived it all. Luna looked at Jake with amazement, then turned to Agent Kaz. He's right. I have learned more about human emotional connections in these past months than years of observation could have taught me. I understand now why humans fight so hard to protect the people they love, why they make illogical choices to help each other, why they create art and music and poetry. These are not relevant data points, Agent Kaz said dismissively. They're the most relevant data points, Jake shot back. If your people ever want to make real contact with humans, you need to understand that we don't operate on pure logic. We operate on connection, on love, on the kind of bond Luna and I have built. Luna squeezed Jake's hand and stepped forward. Agent Kaz, I want to show you something. She pulled out her tablet and projected a holographic display that filled the air around them. Jake saw months of Luna's research, but it wasn't cold data. It was filled with moments they'd shared, conversations they'd had, observations about human behavior that could only come from someone who had lived among them. With an open heart, look at this analysis of human protective instincts, Luna said, highlighting a section. I didn't understand it until Jake walked me home in the rain because he was worried about my safety in this study of how humans use humor to bond. I could never have written this without experiencing Jake's jokes firsthand. Agent has studied the data, and for the first time, his expression showed something other than disapproval. In this, Luna continued, pulling up another section, is my analysis of how humans express love through words. I learned that sweetie can mean casual affection, deep care, or anything in between, depending on context and emotion. I learned that darling can be formal or intimate. I learned that love isn't just a word humans say. It's something they feel so deeply it changes how they see the entire world. Jake watched Agent Kaz's face carefully. He was actually listening now. Most importantly, Luna said, her voice growing stronger, I learned that love between different beings isn't just possible, it's transformative. Jake and I prove that humans and our people could build real relationships based on understanding and care. Agent Kaz was quiet for a long moment, studying the holographic data. Finally, he looked at Luna and Jake together. You are suggesting that your emotional involvement makes you a better researcher, not a compromised one. Yes, Luna said firmly, and you believe this human's feelings for you are genuine, not based on curiosity about your species? Jake stepped forward. Agent Kaz, I fell in love with Luna before I knew she was from another planet. I fell in love with her kindness, her curiosity, the way she blushes when I call her sweetie, the way she says darling like it's the most important word in the universe. Her being from Kepler 442b just makes our love story more amazing, not less. Real? Agent Kaz looked between them for what felt like forever. Then, to Jake's shock, he smiled slightly. In my reports to the Council, I will recommend that researcher Luna be appointed as permanent Earth liaison. Her unique understanding of human emotional connections makes her invaluable for future diplomatic relations. Jake felt his knees go weak with relief. Does that mean? It means Luna will stay on Earth to continue her research and serve as a bridge between our peoples, with one condition. What condition? Luna asked nervously. Agent Kaz looked at Jake. You will serve as her cultural consultant and guide. Your insights into human behavior have proven useful. Jake looked at Luna, hardly daring to believe it. So we can stay together, forever, if you choose. Agent Kaz said, though I suspect Luna has already made that choice. Luna threw her arms around Jake, and for the first time since he'd known her, she didn't worry about whether physical affection was appropriate. My dearest darling, she whispered against his ear. I choose you. I choose love. I choose forever. Jake held her tight, looking up at the stars that no longer seemed impossibly distant. "Hey there, sweetie," he said softly. "I love you too." As Agent Guest prepared to leave, he turned back to them one more time. "Researcher Luna, your love story will be studied across the galaxy as proof that connection between species is possible. You have given both our peoples a great gift." After Agent Guest left, Jake and Luna sat in their clearing under the stars, holding hands and planning their impossible future together. "So," Jake said, grinning at his alien princess, ready to help save the galaxy with the power of love, Luna's laugh was pure joy. "With you, darling, I'm ready for anything."